Tuesday was a league-altering day in the NFL as Aaron Rodgers decided to return to Green Bay, and Russell Wilson is now in Denver with the Broncos. Matt, I have a very simple question for you. Who's more likely to win the Super Bowl this season, the Green Bay Packers or the new-look Denver Broncos?
I still think it's the Green Bay Packers, and we can get into the details of it, but just looking like very generalistic, the AFC already, we were talking about how loaded it is, especially with, Joe Burrow, you have Herbert, all these great young quarterbacks, and you have Pat Mahomes in Kansas City as a powerhouse. You have, Josh Allen and the Bills that have, been kind of the second team the last 2 years. You still have Tennessee, who's going to be deadly. You have Baltimore that's always in the conversation, and even Pittsburgh with their quarterback questions is still a dangerous team because you have Mike Tomlin, who's probably the best coach in the NFL behind, Belichick. So like that in and of itself makes it very hard for Denver. And then you look at the NFC as a whole, I still think as of right now, unless Tampa Bay figures out their quarterback situation, it really is going to be Green Bay and LA as the two best teams as far as rosters go and quarterbacks. And then you have Dallas also. So I think the road there is a lot easier as NFC as a whole. And then you also look at the division. The AFC West is dangerous. Like you could easily go 500 with Russell Wilson or even under 500 with Russell Wilson in that division. And, obviously the Bears are a little easier and Lions and Vikings. So I think the Packers set themselves up. They're still going to return a lot of people even with their salary cap issues. So give me Rodgers and the Packers to be more likely to win it.
Yeah, I mean, the path of least resistance is certainly in the NFC. There's no argument there. Obviously, the AFC is much more talented, particularly at the quarterback position. And you mentioned it, led by Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and there's more names of that ilk.
Absolutely.
But this is where I think the Broncos have a great shot at a Super Bowl this season. Obviously, the roster, and we've said this last season, maybe the season before, the Broncos were a quarterback away with what the rest of the roster looks like from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And now they have in Russell Wilson an arguably top 5 quarterback. And I want to look at recent history too when we look at Super Bowl champions. Who are the last 2 Super Bowl champions? The LA Rams, who brought in Matt Stafford before this season, his first season with the team. The year before that, it was Tom Brady. Tom Brady was brought in the offseason, his first season with the Buccaneers. They win the Super Bowl. So this is becoming a trend in the NFL. And again, you look at the Broncos roster, what doesn't it have? They have an awesome running game and who's going to be a second-year running back in Javonte Williams, who was an awesome as a rookie. You mix in Melvin Gordon, who is slated to be a free agent, but it looks like he wants to return to Denver. Obviously, Melvin Gordon and Russell Wilson were teammates at Wisconsin. On the defensive side of the ball, that's where things really get interesting. This defensive front is awesome, led by Bradley Chubb. The secondary is awesome, led by Justin Simmons. Patrick Surtain was a baller as a rookie. I think he's one of the most talented young corners, really defensive players in the NFL. So this Broncos roster has it all, and now they have the guy in Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, to take them over the top. So again, the path of least resistance is in the NFC. The AFC is tough. The AFC West is tough. But with that extra playoff spot, that doesn't really, you don't need to win your division. You don't even need to finish second in your division to make the playoffs.
I understand, but I will say this, and this is kind of the interesting part as far as, what Russell Wilson was complaining about last year with Seattle. Denver, as much as you said, they do have a good run blocking offensive line. They still gave up 40 sacks.
Yeah.
So this is a team that has some issues in their pass blocking. The other thing is that if you look at the rosters, I still think it's fairly comparable as far as the talent-wise. I mean, the Packers are returning an offensive line that is going to be great, that had injuries. So you're going to get Elton Jenkins back. You're going to get Bakhtiari back.
Yep.
You have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones as your running backs. You have Davante Adams on the outside. And then on defense, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes looked really good in his rookie year too. And you have Rashawn Gary, who's really starting to finally come into his own. And then who could forget Kenny Clark as just an amazing, defensive lineman. So I still think that as great as this Denver roster is, and there is a lot to be excited about with Wilson throwing to Jerry Jeudy and Sutton and those guys, there's still going to be an almost comparable roster in Green Bay. And not to mention, I'll say this, as of right now, I would give the coaching to Green Bay as well, because Hackett is Hackett's unproven. LaFleur at least has had multiple winning seasons as a new head coach. So it's going to be interesting.
And let me speak on that because, again, I've been pretty vocal that I think I've said on this very show that Nathaniel Hackett was probably my least favorite head coaching hire of this cycle.
Yep.
But I'm going to take a look at the Green Bay Packers as well. We know it appears as of late that there's a ceiling to this team, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, whether it be the defense, whether it be the special teams. Mm-hmm. There are issues. And again, I talked about it right after the season ended. The Packers lose their offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of the Broncos. They lose their quarterback coach, Lou Getchie, who's now with the Chicago Bears. So there's going to be question marks, not to mention the fact that Aaron Rodgers just got paid. Yes, it's a team-friendly deal in some facets, but there's going to be some guys probably on the defensive side of the ball for the Green Bay Packers that won't be able to return. I just don't see this Green Bay Packers roster being better, this team being better than it was last season when it fell short in the postseason. But
I guess the one response I'll have to that, and I get your points because they're absolutely true. Here's the other thing that we aren't going to talk about. Denver has a pretty good front office. Mm-hmm. Brian Gutekunst has proven himself to be great at finding that talent.
Yes,
Two of the biggest names this year for the Packers were Rasul Douglas and Devondre Campbell, who both weren't really highly touted coming into the season. Sure. So I think Gutekunst, once again, can do that, even though they're going to lose guys because of their salary cap situation. I believe Gutekunst will be able to replace them and find the guys on the margins that are going to push this team ahead.
Yeah, he's going to need to. Both of these teams are going to have to still make some room around the margins, around the edges before next season begins. But that's going to do it for us. Catch him on tomorrow's episode of Simple Question for Scott Procter. My guy Matt Morris right here. We'll see you then.